Corruption is a stain that can affect any nation, and even in Europe, often seen as the beacon of progress and prosperity, there are countries struggling with this issue. In today's video, we're diving deep into the top 10 most corrupt countries in Europe. From political scandals to economic mismanagement, we'll explore the factors behind the corruption and its impact on these nations. Corruption levels in countries are often assessed through global indices, such as the Corruption Perceptions Index or CPI, published annually by Transparency International. The CPI ranks countries based on perceived levels of public sector corruption, with scores ranging from 0 to 100. While corruption is a problem in many regions, some European countries tend to score lower on the CPI, indicating higher perceived corruption levels. But before starting the video, I want to request we put our best efforts to create our every single video. So please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. So, buckle up as we uncover the hidden side of Europe that you don't often hear about. Let's start. Number 10. Hungary. Hungary is well known for its wealth of thermal and mineral water sources. It is often called the land of waters, and the thermal lakes and baths attract thousands of tourists to the country throughout the whole year. As of January 2024, the population of Hungary is estimated to be 9.6 million people. Corruption in Hungary has been a significant issue, particularly in recent years under the leadership of Prime Minister Viktor Orbán and his ruling Fidesz party. While Hungary was once seen as a relatively clean country in terms of corruption after its transition from communism, its situation has drastically changed over the past decade. International organizations, including Transparency International and the European Union, have raised concerns over the increasing levels of corruption, the erosion of democratic institutions, and the concentration of power within the government. The Hungarian government has been accused of turning state resources into a tool for rewarding political allies, a practice often referred to as clientelism. This includes awarding public contracts to companies with ties to the ruling party, often without competitive bidding. Hungary has a CPI score of 42 this year, with a change of 0 since last year, meaning it ranks 76 out of 180 countries. Hungary is a major recipient of European Union funds, but there are frequent reports of mismanagement and misuse of these funds. Critics argue that EU money is often channeled into projects that benefit the Fidesz party supporters, sometimes involving inflated costs or fake projects. Hungary has seen increasing concentration of media ownership in the hands of individuals and companies close to the government. This has limited investigative journalism and the ability of the media to expose corruption, as many media outlets are either directly controlled by the government or face severe pressure to avoid criticism. Journalists who investigate corruption have faced harassment, legal challenges, and sometimes violence. The lack of independent media makes it harder to hold public officials accountable for corrupt practices. Number 9. North Macedonia. Macedonia is often referred to as the land of lakes and mountains. In the country, there are more than 50 natural and artificial lakes and 16 mountain ranges higher than 2,000 meters above sea level. One of the 3 oldest lakes in the world, Ohrid Lake, is located in Macedonia. As of 2024, the population of North Macedonia is projected to be 1.8 million. Corruption in North Macedonia remains a significant challenge, despite efforts to address it over the years. Like many countries in the Balkans, North Macedonia has faced systemic corruption in various sectors, including the political system, public administration, judiciary, law enforcement, and public procurement. These issues have often been tied to political patronage, clientelism, and a lack of transparency in government dealings. Corruption in North Macedonia is often associated with a system of political patronage, where government officials award public positions, contracts, and benefits to loyal supporters, rather than based on merit. This system has been used by various political parties over the years, leading to widespread favoritism and inefficiency in state institutions. The judicial system in North Macedonia has long been viewed as one of the weakest institutions in the country. Corruption within the judiciary is a significant problem, with accusations of judges being influenced by political forces or bribed to rule in favor of certain interests. This weakens the rule of law and undermines the ability of the courts to hold corrupt officials accountable. One of the most pervasive forms of corruption in North Macedonia involves public procurement. Contracts for infrastructure projects, public services and government tenders are frequently awarded to politically connected individuals or companies, often with little transparency and without competitive bidding. This system allows for the misallocation of public resources and the enrichment of political elites and their business allies. There have been concerns that certain media outlets are financially supported or controlled by political parties, which can result in biased reporting and a lack of critical coverage on corruption issues. This reduces the ability of the media to serve as an effective check on corruption in government. Public trust in government institutions in North Macedonia is low, with many citizens feeling that corruption is deeply embedded in the political and economic systems. According to the Corruption Perceptions Index by Transparency International, North Macedonia has a score of 42 this year, with a change of 2 since last year, meaning it ranks 76 out of 180 countries. Number 8. Albania. Albania have always been considered as a unique country in terms of religion, and religious tolerance is one of the main characteristics of Albanians. Christianity has a long and eventful history in the country, whereby it belongs to one of the most ancient countries of Christianity. With an estimated population of 2.40 million in 2023, Albania ranks 143rd in the world by population. Corruption in Albania is often linked to a system of political patronage, where political elites and parties distribute state resources, jobs, and contracts to loyalists, supporters, and political allies in exchange for votes or favors. This system has been a key feature of Albania's political landscape since the fall of communism. The ruling parties have been accused of using public funds to reward loyal followers and companies aligned with them. Politicians often appoint individuals to key state positions based on political loyalty, not merit, which leads to inefficiency, waste, and corruption. Electoral processes in Albania have been marred by accusations of vote buying, electoral fraud, and manipulation. Politicians often use state resources to influence the outcome of elections, including through bribery or promises of jobs and contracts in return for votes. The police force in Albania has been frequently accused of corruption, particularly in relation to bribery and abuse of power. Police officers sometimes demand bribes from citizens for services or to avoid legal penalties. The lack of oversight and accountability in law enforcement allows these practices to persist. Albania has long been a transit point for drug trafficking, particularly for cannabis and heroin, which are smuggled through the country to European markets. Corruption within law enforcement agencies has made it difficult to effectively tackle organized crime and drug trade networks. Political and police officials have often been implicated in these illegal activities. Number 7. Kosovo. Kosovo is known for its hiking and mountain towns, and its landscape includes broad plains, hills, and mountains. Kosovo has the youngest population in Europe. About 93% of the population is ethnic Albanian, with the remaining 7% made up of other groups. Corruption in Kosovo has been a significant and persistent challenge since the country declared independence in 2008. Despite progress in some areas, corruption continues to affect various aspects of governance, including the political system, public administration, the judiciary, law enforcement, and public procurement. The issue of corruption is deeply ingrained, often linked to political patronage, clientelism, organized crime, and the weaknesses of state institutions. It remains a key obstacle to Kosovo's development, economic growth, and aspirations to integrate into the European Union. Kosovo's political environment has also been marked by corruption during electoral campaigns, including vote buying, manipulation, and undue influence over voters. Political parties and candidates often promise government jobs or other forms of assistance to secure votes. A small number of powerful families and business elites hold significant sway over political and economic decisions in Kosovo. These elites often use their political connections to secure lucrative contracts, privatizations, and influence over the economy. One of the most visible areas of corruption in Kosovo is public procurement, where government contracts are often awarded to companies with political connections or to those who pay bribes to officials. This leads to inefficiency, inflated costs, and low-quality infrastructure projects. Kosovo has a CPI score of 41 this year, with a change of 0 since last year, meaning it ranks 83 out of 180 countries. Kosovo's law enforcement agencies, including the police, have faced allegations of corruption, including bribery and abuse of power. Police officers are sometimes accused of accepting bribes from criminals, organized crime groups, or business owners in exchange for ignoring illegal activities or for favorable treatment. Number 6. Serbia. Serbia is home to beautiful natural landscapes, including mountains, rivers, and national parks. The country's most famous natural landmark is the Javalja Varos, a unique rock formation. The population of Serbia was 6.66 million in 2023, compared to 7.17 million a decade earlier. Corruption in Serbia remains a significant and entrenched problem, despite various reform efforts and the country's aspirations for European Union membership. Serbia's judicial system has long been plagued by corruption. Judges and prosecutors are often seen as being susceptible to political pressure and bribery. In many cases, the judiciary has failed to hold corrupt politicians, businessmen, or criminals accountable, undermining the rule of law and public trust in justice. Despite numerous high-profile corruption cases, many powerful individuals in Serbia, including politicians and business elites, escape punishment due to their political connections or the weak enforcement of judicial reforms. The lack of independence in the judiciary and the slow pace of legal proceedings contribute to the persistence of corruption. The healthcare system in Serbia has long been characterized by corruption. Patients are often asked to pay bribes to receive medical treatment or access certain services, and healthcare professionals may demand payments for procedures or for favorable treatment. Public hospitals suffer from underfunding and inefficiency, exacerbating the impact of corruption on healthcare delivery. Serbia has a CPI score of 36 this year, with a change of 0 since last year, meaning it ranks 104 out of 180 countries. Serbia has undertaken several efforts to combat corruption, often under pressure from international organizations, especially the European Union. Number 5. Romania. Romania is well known for its diverse cultural heritage, beautiful nature, historic landmarks, amazing food, and famous legends like Dracula. It offers a range of experiences for travelers who want to explore its history, culture, and landscapes. Corruption in Romania has been a long-standing issue, affecting various sectors, including politics, public administration, the judiciary, law enforcement, and business. Despite significant efforts to combat corruption, particularly after Romania joined the European Union in 2007, the country continues to face systemic challenges. Corruption has hindered Romania's democratic development, economic growth, and its capacity to implement reforms effectively. Political corruption in Romania is often characterized by patronage systems, where politicians reward supporters with public jobs, contracts, or other benefits in exchange for political loyalty. This system has made it difficult to ensure transparency and accountability in government decision-making. Vote buying and electoral fraud have been reported in several Romanian elections, and politicians have been accused of using public resources to gain an unfair advantage. While these practices have decreased over the years, political corruption in the form of clientelism and manipulation of the electorate persists. The country has witnessed significant corruption scandals involving high-ranking officials. Several prime ministers, and members of parliament have been investigated or convicted for corruption, including embezzlement, bribery, and abuse of office. These cases, however, often result in lengthy trials, delays in justice, or reduced sentences due to political influence. Romania has a CPI score of 46 this year, with a change of 0 since last year, meaning it ranks 63 out of 180 countries. Corruption in the education sector is also common, with students sometimes paying bribes to professors to secure grades, admission to universities, or access to certain academic opportunities. Although some efforts have been made to increase transparency in education, the system remains prone to corruption, particularly in public universities and lower levels of education. Number 4. Bulgaria. Bulgaria is famous for producing high-quality rose oil. The country primarily relies on the Rose Valley near Kazanlak for its rose oil production. Visitors can experience the annual Rose Festival and celebrate the bloom of Bulgarian roses and the country's rose oil industry. The population of Bulgaria was 6.45 million in 2023, compared to 7.25 million a decade earlier. Corruption in Bulgaria is a long-standing and significant issue that continues to affect many sectors, including politics, public administration, law enforcement, the judiciary, business, and public services. Despite efforts to address corruption, Bulgaria still faces major challenges in combating it, and the issue has been a major factor in limiting the country's democratic development, economic growth, and integration within the European Union. Since Bulgaria joined the EU in 2007, the country has been subject to the Cooperation and Verification Mechanism, which was established to monitor and evaluate Bulgaria's progress in judicial reform and the fight against corruption. Despite some positive steps, corruption remains deeply entrenched in Bulgarian society and governance. Powerful oligarchs in Bulgaria often maintain close relationships with political parties and have significant influence over policy decisions. These business elites, who control key industries such as energy, construction, and media, use their wealth and political connections to influence legislation, public procurement, and privatization processes, often to their own advantage. Bulgaria has witnessed several high-profile corruption scandals involving politicians at the highest levels of government. Former prime ministers, ministers, and other top officials have been investigated or convicted for bribery, embezzlement, and abuse of office. However, such cases often face delays or are politically influenced, which reduces the public's trust in the legal system. Number 3. Russia. In our list of today's video, Russia has the lowest CPI score, which means that if CPI means that Russia is the most corrupt country in Europe, but we will try to find out where it is on the scale. As of 2023, Russia's population is estimated to be 146.4 million. Corruption in Russia is one of the most pervasive and entrenched problems in the country, deeply embedded in both political and economic systems. It has been a significant obstacle to Russia's development, undermining its democratic institutions, economic performance, and international image. Corruption in Russia is widespread, ranging from petty bribery to high-level embezzlement involving the country's political elite, business oligarchs, and public officials. While efforts have been made to combat corruption, particularly in the post-Soviet era, these efforts have often been overshadowed by political control, the lack of independent oversight, and the concentration of power in the hands of a few elites. Russia has a score of 26 this year, which is the lowest in our list. Russian politics is heavily based on patronage networks. Politicians at all levels are involved in reciprocal relationships with business figures, in which state resources and contracts are exchanged for loyalty, political support, or financial contributions. This system of cronyism undermines democratic processes and leads to inefficiencies in governance. Senior politicians, including President Vladimir Putin and members of his inner circle, have been accused of corruption. Several high-profile officials, including former ministers and governors, have been implicated in large-scale corruption scandals involving embezzlement, bribery, and kickbacks. Number 2. Moldova. Wedged between Romania and Ukraine, it might be easy to miss the small country of Moldova on a map. Although it became an independent republic in 1991 following the collapse of the Soviet Union, Moldova is home to archaeological sites, rich history, and culinary traditions. The population of Moldova was 2.54 million in 2023, compared to 2.87 million a decade earlier. Corruption in Moldova is a pervasive and deeply entrenched issue that affects nearly every level of government and public life. Over the years, Moldova has struggled to build strong institutions and enforce rule of law, largely due to political instability, economic challenges, and the dominance of oligarchic networks. Despite its efforts to align with European standards and combat corruption, Moldova continues to face significant challenges in tackling graft and building a transparent, accountable state. Moldova's position as one of the poorest countries in Europe, combined with its historical ties to the Soviet Union and ongoing political divisions, especially the issue of relations with Russia versus the European Union, has allowed corruption to flourish. The country ranks consistently poorly in international corruption indices, and there are widespread concerns about the ability or willingness of the government to address the problem effectively. One of the most defining features of corruption in Moldova has been the role of oligarchs, wealthy business elites who exert significant control over the country's political system. The oligarchs have used their financial resources to influence elections, secure government contracts, and even control entire political parties. For example, Vladimir Plahotniuc, a former oligarch and leader of the Democratic Party, was widely accused of wielding disproportionate power in Moldova's political landscape until his departure in 2019. Moldova has faced widespread allegations of electoral fraud and manipulation. Votes are often bought, and political campaigns are marred by the use of state resources for party advantage. The influence of oligarchs and powerful businessmen also extends to elections, where they can sway public opinion using media channels they own or control. Corruption during elections undermines the legitimacy of the democratic process, further eroding public trust. One of the largest corruption scandals in Moldova's history was the 2014 banking crisis, in which approximately $1 billion, roughly 12% of Moldova's GDP, disappeared from the country's banking system. 3 banks were involved in the scandal, and it was revealed that the money had been embezzled through fraudulent loans, with the involvement of top political and business figures. The scandal led to significant public outcry, but investigations have been slow, and the culprits have not been held accountable. Moldova has been a hub for money laundering, with numerous reports of illicit financial flows entering and leaving the country. Moldova's banking sector has been criticized for its lack of effective oversight, which has allowed criminals and corrupt officials to move large sums of money abroad without detection. This has contributed to Moldova's reputation as a tax haven for illicit activities. Moldova has a score of 42 this year, with a change of 3 since last year, meaning it ranks 76 out of 180 countries. Number 1. Ukraine. Ukraine is often called the breadbasket of Europe because it boasts the ideal conditions for growing wheat and is a major producer of the stuff. In 2021, the last year before Russia's full-scale invasion, it had a population of about 40 million. Corruption in Ukraine has been one of the country's most significant and persistent challenges, undermining its political system, economy, and societal trust for decades. Despite the efforts made by successive governments, Ukraine has struggled to tackle deep-rooted corruption, which permeates almost every level of the state, including politics, business, law enforcement, and public services. Ukraine's geopolitical positioning between Russia and the European Union, combined with the legacy of Soviet rule and systemic weaknesses in governance, has created a fertile environment for corrupt practices. However, following the Euromaidan revolution in 2014 and the subsequent conflict with Russia, there have been some efforts to address corruption, driven in part by domestic frustration and pressure from the international community, including the European Union and the United States. Despite these reforms, Ukraine still struggles with pervasive corruption. The process of transformation has been slow, as vested interests and powerful oligarchs often thwart attempts at genuine change. While some progress has been made in terms of institutional reforms, systemic corruption remains one of the key obstacles to Ukraine's development and its ambitions for closer integration with Europe. The gas industry has been one of the most corrupt sectors in Ukraine, with reports of illicit deals, overpricing, and kickbacks involving government officials, businesses, and oligarchs. Ukraine's dependency on Russian natural gas, as well as the politics surrounding energy resources, has long been a source of corruption and mismanagement. Healthcare is another sector that has long been plagued by corruption. Patients are often required to pay bribes to receive timely treatment or better care, and medical professionals are frequently accused of demanding money in exchange for services that should be provided for free. Despite some reforms aimed at modernizing the healthcare system, such as increasing the role of private insurance, corruption remains a major barrier to improving healthcare quality and accessibility. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.